and welcome back to the Was That Necessary? Court Case Talk Show. The question I'm going to be answering in today's talk show is, to what extent did the Capato vs. Astrue court case represent a continuity in the fight between state and federal powers? To answer this, I'll give a detailed account of the case, background, the different opinions of each side, the final verdict, and the reasoning behind it, and how it's affected policy post-case. I will also be explaining the case from 3 social science perspectives: cultural, economic, and sociological. But first, I would like to give some background and setting to help all our viewers understand the issue in more depth. In 1999, Robert and Karen Capato were married in New Jersey. Shortly after they got married, Robert was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. They were warned that the chemotherapy might render Robert infertile, so he deposited his sperm in the Northwest Center for Infertility and Reproductive Endocrinology. After the Capatos had a son in August of 2001, Robert's health became bad quickly. He died in Florida in March of 2002. He left his son with Karen and 2 other children from another marriage as his descendants and named as his beneficiaries for his Social Security. A little after Robert's death, Karen started in vitro fertilization using Robert's sperm. Karen gave birth to twins 18 months after Robert's death and applied for them to be covered by survivors' benefits under Title II of Social Security Act. The Social Security Administration, SSA, denied her claims to benefits, so she asked for an appointment in front of the administrative court. The court ruled that the twins were not technically Robert's children in the eyes of the SSA, so couldn't give the benefits. The administrative law judge used Florida's definition of a child because that's where Robert was at the time of his death. The court ruled that it was up to Florida state law, to decide if the twins were able to inherit anything from Robert. Therefore, because Florida law didn't give the twins any benefits, that applied to Social Security benefits as well. Although the federal government let state guidelines determine this case, the Capatos argued that the federal government should define terms that affect federal programs. Quote, Astrue contends that the biological children who are ineligible to inherit from a parent are less likely to have been dependent upon the wage earner support. Astrue contends that the main goal of the act was to assist children who have faced an unanticipated loss of support after the death of a parent. End quote, Cornell Law. The basic rundown of this case was, in short, that the SSA wanted to let states determine whether a child was a beneficiary of a deceased. However, Capato stated that the unambiguous language of the Social Security Act would give benefits to all biological children of the deceased, including the twins. The Supreme Court's decision will hopefully help clear up cases like this in the future, and hopefully this will also reflect the possibilities of unanticipated advances in modern sciences while creating new laws and acts. On May 21, 2012, the case was finalized and the Supreme Court decided to hold the original court case and deny Capato the request for benefits for the twins. In general, the problem wasn't with the Social Security not giving them benefits because they were created posthumously. It was that Florida law was saying that they weren't technically Robert's children because they were born out of his marriage with Karen. This is because in Florida law, a marriage is technically over once a person dies, meaning that the children were born and conceived out of wedlock and therefore couldn't be given benefits. Now that you understand the background of the case, I would like to offer some social science ramifications. Cultural. Posthumous childbirth is different from posthumous conception and has actually been around for a very long time, even since the Greek myths. However, as modern technologies advance, we now have IVF, where a child can be created in a lab, and many questions over morals have popped up. As well, embryos and gametes can now be frozen and stored for a long time, which has caused questions over the manipulation of life. Life support and other life-sustaining technologies have risen the question of who can use a body and how the body can be used without its consent. There are questions over using a dead mother or father to retrieve reproductive cells, or even use a dead woman as an incubator for a child for extended periods of time. If a brain-dead man's wife or parents wish to retrieve sperm from the man's body, they must have undeniable evidence that they would have his consent before taking the sample. As well, they would need to know that the man is okay with his posthumous child growing up with a single mother. For consent, there needs to be 3 things. Quote, 1, the patient must have decision-making capability. 2, he must be given adequate information. And 3, he must give voluntary consent without coercion. End quote. BMJ Journals. If this consent is not given, it could be closely viewed as rape. There are also cultural pushbacks when it comes to disturbing a body before it is laid to rest with medical procedures. Some people believe that a body should not be used for medical purposes because they believe in their culture that it disturbs the dead. Economic. When a child's parent dies, they are entitled to benefits from Social Security to help make up for the loss of a wage earner. The deceased may have also left a portion of money to their children in their will. Therefore, the posthumous children would be entitled to money as well. The verdict in Astrue versus Capato led to the decision to follow state inheritance laws and not edit Social Security acts for changing technology. This can lead to a lot of issues because some states recognize posthumously conceived children as legitimate and others don't. Therefore, some children are eligible to get money and others aren't. In general, children of a dead parent can receive monthly benefits until they graduate high school or are 18, whichever comes last. In addition, children that were disabled before the age of 22 can be given benefits as well from a dead parent. The children could receive up to 75% of the money in their Social Security from their parent, which is a significant amount of money. These facts are all from Social Security Administration. These benefits can make a big impact in a struggling child's life. But if they are denied that because they are conceived after a parent died, that takes much needed money away. However, if the child was never financially dependent on the parent because the two never existed at the same time, should they get the money? The surviving parent made the economic choice after they knew they had less of an income. And as well, they knew that they weren't technically married anymore, therefore losing benefits. Sociological. As society advances, so does our reproductive health technologies and the use of them for infertility. In addition, women are now having careers and therefore having kids later, which leads to more reproductive issues, which increases the need for more reproductive technologies. As well, women are more able to support her children. Because they are getting jobs that pay well, this leads to the emergence and normality of sperm banks and women who decide to have children without another financial supporter. The United States is also set up so that a portion of our salary goes into Social Security, which does many things, including supporting our families if we die unexpectedly. If a parent dies and leaves their children, they can get money through both the inheritance left to them by will and Social Security. These facts are all from Social Security Administration. Although reproductive technologies are common and normalized, posthumously born children are much more common than posthumously conceived children. In addition, a widow who was 9 months pregnant when her husband died 10 months ago could also lead to judgment for the widow because posthumous conceptions are fairly rare, so people might jump to assume that she moved on her husband faster than she should have. Also, a woman who might feel bad for having her dead child's spouse without his technical consent, and also that she is having this experience without him. Although this case was only 6 years ago, it has changed things. Historical impact. It cleared up conflicts between the usage of a state definition versus a government definition. As well, this case helped clear up what definition would be used in a government case, being the definition from the state where the deceased died. Justice Ginsburg says that using a state inheritance laws is, quote, a workable substitute for burdensome case-by-case determinations whether the child was, in fact, dependent on her father's earnings, end quote. Quote, but the law Congress enacted calls for resolution of Karen Capato's application for a child's inheritance benefits by reference to state intestacy laws. We cannot replace the reference by creating a uniform federal rule the statute's text scarcely supports, end quote, Ginsburg. Here, Ginsburg is saying that the case helped clear up which definition would be used, ending future confusion and need for court cases. However, this also caused for the government and Social Security Administration to realize that there are holes in the provisions in the texts from 1939 because of growing technologies, and that these acts need to be updated along with updating innovation. This case was in general a continuation of the argument over which part of government should take care of an issue, state or federal, like the subject of many issues in the past, present, and I'm sure future. It also set definitive standards for mothers to understand on what they should expect in terms of benefits for their posthumously conceived children. That their husband must have died in a state that gives them benefits, or he must have specifically referenced posthumous children. In conclusion, although this case might not seem very important for history, it is actually quite the opposite. It was a conflict that showed the government that times are changing, technologies are now amazing, and have outgrown old provisions stated in the 1939 Social Security Acts. It was also an example of a state versus federal issue due to the fact that the Social Security is a federal program, but they are using state definitions to decide who gets the benefits. Unfortunately, Miss Capato and her twins lost the case, but it was a big win in the fact that there would not be need for any more costly court cases over posthumous birth, like the ones before her, example Bueller versus Astrue. Thank you for your time and attention on this very important court case. And next week on the Was That Necessary? Court Case Talk Show, we'll go over how Robert Lee Brock sued himself for $50 million. God bless this country, and good night, America.